What is up, everybody? Back with another list, and today it's going to be my top 10 favorite albums of 1991. Really good year, not quite as good as 1990, which in the past I've said is my favorite year of all time, but 91, still a lot of great albums. Got my 10 picks, going to run through those, give some honorable mentions after I say my number 2, as usual. Here we go. Starting off the list at number 10 is From Beyond by Massacre. Really great classic thrashy death metal. The lineup of the band actually consists of all former Death members, which is pretty cool. You've got Bill Andrews on drums and Terry Butler on bass. Both played on Spiritual Healing by Death in 1990. You've got Rick Ross on the guitar, who played on Leprosy in 88, and a guy named Cam Lee on vocals. He was an early singer in Death, actually when they were still known as Mantis in like 83, 84. But this album here, mostly great stuff. Looking at the track listing, I'd say a couple of my favorites are probably Succubus, Cryptic Realms, and Biohazard, but all really solid. Very good album. From Beyond, number 10. Coming in at number 9 is Arise by Sepultura. Pretty much everybody's favorite Brazilian metal band. They have several really great albums. I'd probably say Beneath the Remains is my favorite of theirs at this point, but Arise, still very good. It's got a lot of awesome songs. You know, Dead Embryonic Cells, Murder's a really great underrated track, and probably the title track, my favorites. But all pretty good. Kind of don't really care for Sepultura after Chaos AD, but good band up to that point in my opinion. Arise, number 9. Next up, at number 8 is Terminal Terror by Holy Moses. Really great, underrated thrash metal band from Germany. Definitely one of my favorite thrash bands of all time. A lot of really great albums from them, and I'd probably say their 1989 album, The New Machine of Liechtenstein, one of the best thrash metal albums of all time. That one is like technical thrash style. That's in 89. Then by this point in 91, they've kind of evolved their sound to more of like a death metal, like thrashy death metal style, a mix of those two, but Savina Klassen, the vocalist, very brutal vocals at this point. Like, you wouldn't know she's a girl if you'd never, like, seen the band before, but really great singer. And her husband at this point, his name was Andy Klassen. He was the lead guitarist, really great player. Looking at this track listing, a lot of awesome stuff here, but I'd say Two Sides Terror, Pool of Blood, and probably Tradition of Fatality, my 3 favorite songs on it. Great stuff. Terminal Terror, number 8. Coming in at number 7 is Symbol of Salvation by Armored Saint. Really good album from a good band. They've got several strong releases from back in the day, but I would say this is definitely my favorite by them. It's got 13 songs on it. Pretty solid from start to finish, but a couple of my favorites I'd say are Rain of Fire, Last Train Home. The title track is great, and probably the final song, Spineless. John Bush does the vocals with Armored Saint. He, of course, went on to be in Anthrax pretty shortly after this was released. Was Anthrax's singer from like 92 up through the early 2000s. But yeah, this album, really good. Symbol of Salvation, number 7. In at number 6 is Time Does Not Heal by Dark Angel. Really good classic thrash metal album. Definitely my favorite from them. And when this was released, it came with a sticker that said 9 songs, 67 minutes, 246 riffs. So a lot of really good riffs throughout the album. The drumming is great from Gene Hoglan, of course. The guy's a machine. He played with Death. He's in Testament right now, so amazing drummer. And looking at this track listing, some of my favorites I'd say are New Priesthood, An Ancient Inherited Shame, and A Subtle Induction. but very strong from start to finish. Time Does Not Heal, number 6. Coming in at number 5 is Victims of Deception by Heathen, another really good classic thrash metal album. It's pretty praised in the metal community, but I feel like it should have been a lot bigger, like from a mainstream perspective. Someone recently said to me that the music sounds like, if James Hetfield, Alex Skolnick, and Vinnie Paul all jammed together. I think that's a pretty good description of their sound, but great technical thrash metal. The guitar playing from Doug Piercy and Lee Altus is amazing. Altus, of course, has been in Exodus for about 15 years now, so a really great player. Looking at this track listing, great stuff all throughout the album, but Opiate the Masses, Prisoners of Fate, and probably Mercy Is No Virtue are my favorites. Very strong album. Victims of Deception, number 5. Taking the number 4 spot is The Human Factor by Metal Church, another really great overlooked album. When people talk about what the best Metal Church album is, a lot of times they'll say one of the first 3, the self-titled, The Dark, or Blessing in Disguise. Unpopular opinion here from me, I think this one is their best. It's my favorite at least. Just really great guitar tone and playing from Craig Wells and John Marshall, mixed with the great unique vocals of Mike Howe. This one just does it for me. It's my favorite by them. Looking at the track listing, gotta say a couple of my favorites are The Final Word, Date with Poverty, Flee from Reality is awesome, The Fight Song, a lot of really awesome stuff here, start to finish. Very strong, underrated album, The Human Factor, number 4. Night of the Storm Rider by Iced Earth comes in at number 3. Fantastic album from a great band, one of my all-time favorites. Looking at the track listing, so many great classic songs on here. Storm Rider, Angel's Holocaust, The Path I Choose, Mystical End, Desert Rain, Pure Evil, Traveling in Stygian. A lot of great stuff there. A lot of these songs made it onto the live album, Alive in Athens from '99, which, in my opinion, probably the best metal live album of all time. John Schaefer on rhythm guitar, of course, in Iced Earth, one of the best rhythm guitar players of all time, a riff machine. This is their only album with John Greeley on vocals, who I think does a really good job. So, Night of the Storm Rider, great album, number 3. In at number 2 is Human by Death. Great album from a great band. Actually, just ranked their discography in my last video if you guys want to go check that out. This album pretty high up on the list. The lineup of the band at this point was Paul Masvidal on guitar alongside of Chuck, Sean Reinert on the drums, who does an amazing job, and Steve DiGiorgio on the bass. So RIP to Sean and Chuck, who have both sadly passed away at this point. But amazing album, great classic death metal. Looking at these songs, Flattening of Emotions is one of my favorites. Lack of Comprehension is great, of course. And Cosmic Sea is really good. Really, all of these songs, very good. Amazing album, Human, number 2. So before I get to number 1, I'm going to go through some honorable mentions here as usual. No particular order with this stuff. Just going to run through them real quick. Slave to the Grind by Skid Row. Testimony of the Ancients by Pestilence is good. Death Shall Rise by Cancer, another good classic death metal album. Mental Vortex by Coroner. I Hate, Therefore I Am by Cyclone Temple, a good, underrated, classic thrash metal album. War Master by Bolt Thrower. Hungry by XYZ, which is kind of like a glam metal style album. Welcome to the Ball by Vicious Rumors, a good, underrated album. Twilight of the Gods by Bathory. So, a lot of great stuff from 1991. Very solid year. And without further ado, on to number 1. And taking the number 1 spot is Horoscope by Overkill. Great record, one of my favorite thrash albums of all time. It's their first without classic guitarist Bobby Gustafson. He played on the first 4, and then he left. They replaced him with Rob Canavino and Merritt Gant, both great guitarists. A lot of awesome riffs and solos throughout this album. The rest of the lineup, of course, you got Dee Dee Verney on the bass and Bobby Blitz on vocals. Those two guys, the only constant members of Overkill throughout the years, and Sid Falk on the drums. Looking at this track listing, a ton of amazing stuff, but I'd say a couple of my favorites are Coma, probably the title track, Bare Bones is an awesome song, Nice Day for a Funeral, maybe my favorite on this album, but a lot of awesome stuff here. Horoscope, my number 1 album of 1991. And yeah, that does wrap up my ranking. Top 10 albums, 1991. As usual, you guys can let me know what you thought. Give me your ranking in the comments. And until next time, thank you for watching.